G'day, Shane Dowling here from the website and YouTube channel Kangaroo Court of Australia. I'm with Simon Mulvaney from Save the Bees, the Facebook page. He's also got a website and other social media accounts, Instagram. And we're going to talk about bees and the fact that a lot of bees are dying in Queensland, a huge number in fact, and our food security could be at risk. I'll read this out from an ABC article, just a few paragraphs. It says, "We think there will be potential for pollination shortfalls," Rob Stevens from the Queensland Department of Primary Industries said. "There will be industries that don't quite understand their reliance on bees for pollination services because they have been over-reliant on wild honeybees." He said some would need to pay for commercial beekeepers for the first time. "There is a possibility that there's a direct threat to food security," Mr. Stevens said. "If you add pollination to another fixed price, that could push some growers over the limit." Now, I found that in an article titled "Queensland Beekeepers Paying Thousands Each Month to Fend Off Varroa Mites as Colonies Devastated." Now, I did a quick search, bees dying in Australia. You'll be able to find plenty of articles on that. I found that interesting that someone from the Department of Primary Industries is basically admitting that food security could be an issue with the number of bees dying in Queensland. So what do you know about that, Simon?
We touched on this topic, I think 3 or 4 years ago when Varroa first hit, and it was in Newcastle at that time. And I did wrote to the Senate inquiry quite a comprehensive outline of how they should proceed. And the thing we told them was they had to confine it and stop migratory beekeeping for the short term. But instead, we have a really powerful almond industry lobby here. And the almond industry lobbied successfully to allow hives from New South Wales and Queensland to cross the border into Victoria. And that created a super spreading event. And now Varroa is all across the East Coast. But the guy in that article said something which is very true. Was it Robert Stevens? I think that's what you said his name was. We have been reliant on wild bees, and that's wild honeybees. They've been doing 90% of the pollination across the country for free. Some people have complained about wild bee populations in the past. They call them feral bees, and sometimes they do take hollows up of, possums or lorikeets and other things. But the thing is, those same bees were doing all this pollination, and we're in a world of hurt because when this happened to New Zealand initially, their whole GDP dropped. So there is going to be food security issues.
What I read is that in some of those articles is that 90% of the wild bees in Queensland have died, in southeast Queensland, that is.
I'll give you a rundown what's happening because I'm getting direct feedback every day by commercial beekeepers, some humongous, like with 4,000 hives, one guy with 4,000 hives down to 400. Another beekeeper in northern Queensland said he checked his apiary the other day and all 110 hives were dead. And that's like, so something else is happening now. It was initially the Varroa mite, but we believe that the bees have now got a virus. We don't know what the virus are, but it's from obviously their immune system being hit. Now this virus has developed. So it's a scary scenario. The first time this happened, the government did fork out $41 million to try to help out the situation. That was a complete calamity. The money got spent in a terrible way. They were just basically giving checks of millions of dollars to big commercial beekeepers who were spreading the mite at the time. And now you've got these people asking me to do GoFundMes for them. And the government will have to get involved because as the Robert Stevens or whoever he is said, he is that the flow-on effect from bees is food. Like beekeepers aren't acknowledged enough for being sort of the base of the food system, or I should say bees themselves.
Well, Rob Stevens is from the Department of Primary Industries, and that's why I read out that quote, because he said there is that possibility that there's a direct threat to food security. what do you mean possibility? They should know or have a better idea. And it doesn't seem like they're actually taking any precautionary measures. They're just sitting there waiting to see what happens. And if we do have a food security issue, I suppose they're just going to import food, try and solve the problem that way. But importing more food has further risk, does it not?
Well, the thing is, they're 300,000 hives short from the almond industry. So the almond industry were the ones that were lobbying for bees to be able to be migrated across the states. Now they've, kicked an own goal in a way by wiping their own situation out. The solutions that people are putting forward are nearly haunting in themselves because some people are suggesting they'll have to import honeybees in from overseas, but that would be drastic because that could bring more diseases through. Other people are saying that the government's just going to have to bail out beekeepers. In America, what happens is if you lose your bees over winter, the government will help you get more bees or buy more bees, and they have these breeding programs. But for me, I've got a small honey business with about 100 hives. I'm selling high quality honey, and I'm going to be wiped out. So I haven't got it yet, but every single beekeeper I know in New South Wales and Queensland has like 80% of honey producers in New South Wales have gone out of business.
80%. What you said you got 100 hives. How many bees is that? You don't know?
It fluctuates. The bees are quite amazing. The queen will stop laying eggs over winter, but over summer, each of those hives would have more than 100,000 bees in them. But as the sun increases and more flowers come out, they'll lay more eggs. But for me, and a lot of people overseas have already been dealing with Varroa mite, you have to manage your bees a lot more. And for us, or for me, it's sort of the bees have been able to look after themselves for a long time. So a lot of people are having a rude awakening now. And some people are doing everything they can because you've got to think of this Varroa mite like head lice. And so there are treatments for the bees that will kill the mite but not kill the bees. But this is another issue I've touched upon, and the commercial industry, it's rare they reach out to me, but they've reached out to me to try to help them. There's a product at Bunnings, and it's called oxalic acid, and you use it to clean decks and it gets rid of rust. Oxalic acid is what they're using overseas to control the mite. They've made it illegal for beekeepers to use here. So if the beekeepers make their own medicines, it can cost them $1 a hive to use the medicine. But there's some branded, permitted way of doing it at the moment, which is making it incredibly expensive. 90% of commercial beekeepers on the east coast of Australia are breaking the law at the moment, just trying to keep their bees alive. And
Buying that from
and
Bunnings and
yeah, well, it's going to be very hard for them to ban the product. I don't know if you remember during COVID, there was big talk about ivermectin, and then ivermectin was illegal to sell.
yeah,
A few
yeah, yeah.
beekeepers are a bit scared about, will oxalic acid be hard to get? But because it's used so much in the building industry, beekeepers should be able to still access it. But the fact that we've got good, honest beekeepers having to break the law to keep their bees alive with no help from the government. The government should be supplying these treatments to bees. And look, it's rife for conspiracy theorists because there will be food security issues, and then we will be reliant on imported food.
Well, just getting back to the almonds, there 300,000 hives. 300,000 was it? Hives short.
Short.
So
Mm.
h- how do they know they're 300,000 short? Because they've sort of estimated, and how will they? How do you think they'll try and fill that gap, that shortfall?
So they're contracted. They've got contracts with commercial beekeepers, big commercial beekeepers, and the big commercial beekeepers, their bees are all dead, and you can they're just going to be out of bees this year. I've seen some guys emailed me and said, "Can you take your 100 hives, help the almond industry out?" I'm going, "Are you crazy, mate?" That's how we got in this mess. So they're really trying to make it attractive. But on that note, they're going to be paying beekeepers. Usually it's $180, $200 a hive that you take there. So it's quite a bit of money if you've got 10,000 hives or 4,000 hives. But this year, they've started to offer $350 per hive. But a lot of people aren't going to go because what they're calling, there's a new mite that is resistant to all the treatments except that one oxalic acid that I'm talking about. So that's cheap. But all the other ones that Big Pharma makes, like Bayer and those companies, the mites have got resistant. What people think is that someone has imported queen bees and accidentally brought in another mite, not like the first one, a more advanced one from Canada. And that's why this virus has come in and bees are getting completely wiped out.
So really, the almond industry, they're just going to have to hit that brick wall then, probably. But
well, on that note, you look into the almond industry itself. All the almonds are pretty much exported overseas. They're taking so much water for each almond tree. It's like, I don't know, someone set a figure of a couple of kilos an almond of water or something. So this big monoculture system from America that we've copied has been disastrous. And now we're going to find out why. And America itself had 90% bee die-offs last year because there's this new resistant mite, and now we've got it here. So we should really be looking at where our food comes from and how it's grown. But as you mentioned, it's not only almonds, it's all your stone fruit, it's your apples, it's carrots, it's beetroot. There's so many different things that are reliant on honeybees for pollination. And then you get people in the comments, they'll often say, what about our native bees, our blue-banded bees? And they can't survive on the monoculture crops because they need a variety of different pollens and nectars. And the way these monoculture crops work is they're doused with pesticides to kill all the pests, and then they bring the honeybees in. And then quite often the almond farmers don't care, and beekeepers will mistime it and all their bees will be poisoned off anyway. So yeah, we're talking about a creature that was sacred and revered over time, and we've really been exploiting it, and we're paying for it now.
Just another question, just on that poisoning. I've seen an article here. EPA investigates poisoning of 250,000 bees in Cowra. That was from April last year. Did you read about that, or do you remember that? Or
I did, and I don't know if you can read that there. I've been part of a campaign, Stop the Toxic Fire Ant Program or Stop the Toxic Ant Program. And there's this poisoning program going on with helicopters and drones in Queensland that is targeting ants, but it's affecting all bees, including honeybees. And it's not uncommon for apiaries to be completely lost. And beekeepers go, oh yeah, I've just lost a load. And a load of bees is if you're 140, about 100 grand sometimes for these beekeepers.
do you think it's fair to say the federal government and the Queensland state government are looking at the bee industry here, and we're the canary in the coal mine for the rest of the country in relation to food security? They're going to sit back and say, okay, what impact is it having in Queensland over the next 6 or 12 months? And if it doesn't have a huge impact, they'll sit back and do nothing. But if it does have an impact, they might actually take some more action. Is that what you think? We're the canary in the coal mine in Queensland?
I know there's a white paper coming out from the commercial industry, like from people in the commercial industry. I actually think it's more calamity. It's like I'm doing my best to articulate the situation. I've been trying to warn people for 4 years now what is at stake, but they're naive and they're pursued. They listen to lobbyists, and there's going to be a massive crisis. As you read in that original article, we were getting the wild pollinators doing it for free. So we were getting this free ride from nature, which you couldn't predict. And now these people who are growing our food will have to hire beekeepers to come in, but there's no beekeepers left. And
So,
then partly you've been on the journey with me with the fake honey at the supermarket. That's
mm,
become worse than ever. And I remember talking to you at the time, and I'm like, well, COVID had hit, and I thought, people are tired of that issue. Capilano at the time announced they're not going to import honey again. 6 months later, they start importing honey again, and now it's been a race to the bottom. I've received information there's a new Indian honey brand, which is weird because honey doesn't really get produced in India, and they're selling it for $6 a kilo, and it's massively corrupt. The organisation that's meant to be in charge of honey is called ARBIC, the Australian Honey Board Industry Council, but their two biggest contributors are the honey importer, which is Hive and Wellness Capilano Honey, and also Beechworth, and it's their whole idea to keep the honey price down. But now honey's gone lower than the price of production. I think beekeepers only paid $4, $4.20, and that was the same price when we were attacking Capilano. The price started to soar; it went up to $6. But when we took the friggin' foot off the pedal, it's become incredibly bad, to the extent that now I am hitting up beekeepers directly, saying bypass Capilano, bypass the other packers. I'll sell your honey for you. And I've started giving beekeepers up to $10 a kilo when they're meant to, I'm doing my best. And just if anyone's listening, I'm suggesting buying your honey direct through me in 10-kilo buckets, because the stuff in the supermarket's all full of chemicals as well. I've had to, antibiotics. You're familiar with this issue. The glyphosate, Roundup, the Bayamate, and neonicotinoids. So I've started helping out honey producers that get their honey from the forest, as opposed to these people who are exploiting their bees at the almonds and just after, selling us crap.
otherwise, people can do a search also on the internet for local beekeeper in your area and try and find a local beekeeper in the area.
Well, I have got that. I've got the honey map, and like that honey
Oh, you
map
got Honey Map.
was great. You put your postcode in and you find your closest beekeeper. But 70% of them are gone now. The bees are literally dead.
So, but there's a Honey Map still up and running?
Yeah, it is still up and running, but I've sort of got to warn people on the east coast of Australia that beekeepers are doing a lot to try to keep their bees alive, including using these treatments that are putting poisons in their honey. So I've actually had to start sourcing from Tasmania and Western Australia myself, because we're in this bind at the moment that's why I was campaigning against imported honey for so long, because of these chemicals that are attached to the Varroa mite. And, there's not many beekeepers that aren't using those sort of chemicals. So what's interesting is Cuba had this issue 20, 30 years ago, and they couldn't have the pharmaceutical industry wasn't there to bolster up the bees. And so they started breeding resistant bees. And now Cuba has the best organic honey industry in the world.
But is Woolies still selling their honey, their imported fake honey?
Yeah. And I've got to congratulate you, though, Shane, and a pat on the back to you and myself, because when we ran our campaign, there was sort of only 2 brands available. Now there's sort of 4 or 5. Woolworths was very embarrassed through that. And I've had insider information how embarrassed we make it. And I've helped a couple of companies get on the shelf. There's one that's really bad called Cloverdale honey.
That's Capilano honey still.
Yeah. Anyway, you pick this out. To find out which ones not to buy, read the back of the label and see if it's packed at Richlands 3000 Queensland. And that means they're all come out from some vat that, Hive and Wellness or Capilano run. The others, at the moment, it's hard for me to suggest any brand at the supermarket. And that's because I've been asking beekeepers to assure me that they're not using antibiotics and I've been asking beekeepers to assure me that they're not using miticides.
So that's about it. I think it's really a waiting game. I think the Queensland government, the federal government, are playing the waiting game to see what happens in Queensland because they're not announcing anything, announcing any major moves to change the situation or improve the situation or any plan either. So they've got no plan at the moment, it doesn't look like, except for playing the waiting game and then react to whatever happens. But I suppose what that's all we can do is wait and see what happens and encourage people to buy from their local beekeeper, etc. Or they can buy off your website. Other than that, thank you for your time, Simon.
Yeah, thanks, Shane. This will be a hot topic in the next couple of years, mate, because we will. It'll be a crisis on food, and as the solutions arise, I'm happy to talk to you about it.
I think in the next 6 to 12 months, there's going to be a bit of a crisis in Queensland. So not the next few years.
Yeah, massively, because you've got the added thing about this poisoning program killing the native bees. So if you haven't got the native bees or the European honeybee, who's going to do the pollination?
All right, then. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Shane.
And I'm an independent journalist, and I'm 100% crowdfunded from viewers like yourself, which helps fund the Kangaroo Court of Australia website, YouTube channel, podcast, and social media accounts that I run. I've been running a campaign to help fund that work. I'll read that out to you. 29 weeks ago, I launched a campaign with a simple goal: find 200 new monthly supporters so I can keep doing this work as a fully independent journalist, running this website and YouTube channel without corporate backing or paywalls. Since then, 187 wonderful people have stepped up and become monthly supporters. That's huge, thank you. We're now at 13 to go. If you've been enjoying the work and aren't yet supporting monthly, I'd be incredibly grateful if you consider joining them. Here's the situation. Like most independent journalists, I'm basically a one-person small business. Right now, a lot of us are feeling the squeeze, just like many small businesses and households are. To stay afloat and keep bringing you the reporting I do, I need roughly 200 or more people, well, 13 now, chipping in whatever they can comfortably afford each month. Anything from $3 to $100 or whatever works for your budget makes a real difference. There's no lock-in. You can cancel or adjust at any time. If that feels doable right now, you can see all the donation options on the donations page on my website, and I'll put a link to the donations page below this video on YouTube. Your support, whether it's a monthly donation or one-off donation or just sharing my work, what helps keep independent voices like this one alive. And please do your bit and help shine a light on corruption and share this video on social media. And please hit the like and subscribe button and notification button on YouTube. That way you get notified when I publish new videos. Other than that, thank you for your time and have a good day.